Oh my God, we are streaming. Did I say that? Excellent. I will not repeat that. Okay, so please let me know if you guys want to. So we are thinking of doing maybe like in February, Vertex, February, a long hands-on lab we can sit because with all the food that we get in here, we need to sit here and then digest it for a few hours. Shall we wait a little more? Well, I'm okay. We can wait a few more minutes. Okay. So let's see. I also run the Boston Android. I'm looking for speakers for that too. I'm shameless. And also starting in January, I'm gonna have a series of meetings, which I'm thinking of how I should do that. New group, architecting group. Most because I'm tired of languages. Okay, architect who doesn't practically know the language should be really independent of it. So it's large system architectures and then enterprise architectures. I am hoping to start it with architecture and elegance, probably sometime late in the January time if it works. You can become a member on that if you guys want to. Having done that, we'll wait a few more minutes. But in the meantime, I'd like to really thank Red Hat, Devin especially. He has given up the kitchen expeditions or some other event for a team building of Red Hat to host us in here, and he is doing the very first live stream. This is awesome because I'm gonna steal this technology from him. Um, there is a band-aid somewhere there too. I see that, so it's a great active acknowledgement. So thank you, Devin, and Red Hat for the rest of it, and looks like that we should be meeting in here in the coming months. We're gonna arrange it. I know that it's a little bit different venue for the Cambridge crowd, but it's not that hard to get in here. It's a little bit bigger size, and there's still plenty of parking right across the street. So if you're coming out of town, you can come in here. Okay. So that said, I'm gonna turn my telephones off. Okay, very soon. Right? Would you like to say a few words, Devin, so that we pay the rent?
So our marketing sponsor, Crystal, said I had to at least mention that you're here at the brand new Red Hat Seaport office. This is our home of our new Executive Briefing Center and the Open Innovation Labs, which is where I work. We're very happy to host and sponsor this community. We're hoping to get some more meetups going here very soon. One of our engineers is working on getting the Rust meetup here. I'm working on getting the Docker and Kubernetes groups meeting up here. So hopefully you'll be visiting us on a regular basis. If there's anything we can do to help you technology-wise, whether it's buying our products or otherwise, I'd be happy to help teach you anything that I can help teach you. That said, I've offered Burke my input for speaking about Vertex in a future session. It's a technology I'm pretty excited about. It's new to Red Hat. It was just released as a product under our support umbrella, so hopefully you'll get a chance to try it out. It's my favorite way of doing event-based, non-blocking microservices, and with that, I'd like to turn it over to our speaker for this evening, who is Nikhil Dole, and he will be talking to you tonight about Spring Boot with Redis.
Thank you. Uh, so I'm Nikhil Dole. I work at Plymouth Rock Assurance in a group known as Research and Architecture. I report to Chief Architect, and the main aim of our group is to do research on new technologies, various architectures, and uh, create POCs and explain to the employees in our organization about it. And if there are any issues that they are dealing with, then we need to jump in and find the solutions. So thank you for giving me the opportunity today to talk about Redis. So there was a requirement in our organization to do caching. So I did some research and I found Redis to be pretty good. So that's how I got introduced to Redis. So this is the redis.io website. Here is the location to download Redis based on your operating system. You can download it. For Windows, you need to click on Learn More, and it will take you to the another page where you can download Redis. This is the GitHub page. You can search by my name and slash Spring Boot Redis, and you can find the code that I'm going to show you today. So I will go through the slides first, and then we can see the demo. So Redis is basically an open source in-memory database platform. It supports high performance operational analytics or a hybrid use case. Redis Labs also offers commercial product uh, known as Redis Enterprise. Uh, so what is Redis? It's not a replacement for a relational database nor for document stores. The key characteristics of Redis are it's NoSQL, it has key value pairs, it's in memory, and it's open source. So in Redis, we have it's a key value store, and where keys can contain data structures as values, which support a set of atomic operations. So Redis community is pretty strong. Uh, it has clients in multiple languages. Multiple libraries have been developed using Redis. Lot of contributors. It's pretty mature over last 3 to 4 years. About 250K databases have been run on uh, Redis over the last 3 years, and about 600 databases are getting created every day. So it's basically a pretty mature community in Redis. Typical use cases for Redis involve, first one is caching, then we can do geospatial indexing. Nowadays there are multiple devices and appliances which have access to Wi-Fi, for which we need to store the location. We can use the geospatial indexing using Redis. We can do various analytics, data ingest, even machine learning in Redis, using Redis, I mean. So anytime we need to have data to be stored in memory which is not very large and we need to have quick access to it, that is a good use case for Redis. All these companies use Redis. There are many more, but I just picked a few. Twitter, GitHub, Pinterest, Snapchat, Craigslist, etc. So Redis is the top database to be used in AWS. And you can see that out of the top three, the top two databases are, the two databases out of top three are no SQL databases. Those are Redis and MongoDB. First one is Redis, second is MySQL, and third one is MongoDB. So what are the advantages of Redis? Uh, First one is it has no schemas or column names. It supports complex data types and structures. It provides atomic operations. So for example, one of the use case is counters for Redis. So since we have atomic operations possible in Redis, it is guaranteed that no two clients are going to have the same count. If two clients are incrementing the counter, they are bound to have different uh, count value. We have a great support for scalability. There is command line interface availability in Redis. It gives great performance and availability, fault tolerance, and portability. There is pipelining support in Redis, which is basically if we want to run thousands of commands at the same time without getting the response synchronously. So we can just run the commands, and after those commands are executed, a response can come back asynchronously to us. Redis is very simple to install, set up, and manage. It's highly configurable, and there is support for many languages. The API is very straightforward and it is very well documented. So this is the command reference for Redis. Yeah, so basically there is a good support and documentation. It's open source, that's definitely a plus. It's available on Microsoft Azure and AWS. It supports an algorithm known as LRU, which is least recently used. So since it's an in-memory database, memory is always finite, and if the memory is full, Redis has to decide whether which keys are to be kept alive and which can be removed from the memory. So at that time, it uses the algorithm known as least recently used. So basically, the oldest keys which were created get removed from the memory. Keys with limited time to live. So this is there is a support in Redis where we can set the time for the keys. So we can say a typical key can last for few seconds, minutes, or even days. So after that time is passed, the key is removed from the data store. It has support for Lua scripting language. This scripting language has been around since 1990s, but it's getting popular nowadays, and Redis has support for that. So there are two types of data types supported by Redis. One is basic and one is the advanced. In the basic, there are 5 data types: strings, list, sets, sorted sets, and hashes. And in the advanced, we have bitmaps, hyperlog logs, and geospatial indexes. Any time is fine. The great use case for Redis is caching, but there is also support for persistence.
So we need to have something database.
No, that's not required.
Okay, and then what's the scalability of this? Tied to the amount of RAM we have.
Yeah, but it can be scaled across multiple physical servers. So we'll go through that later.
It can write disk. It doesn't have to, but it can.
So there is a tool known as Redis Desktop Manager, which is available only in Windows. So it acts as a client to Redis server. So using that, I'm going to show you the basic data types. So this is the Redis Desktop Manager. This is the client which is connecting to my local Redis server. So these are the 5 data types here. It's string. String is the key and value. Then we have set. Set 1 is the key, and there are values as the cities. Here we see the size is 4 and time to live is -1. That means this key is not going to expire. Sorted set is, going back to set, set doesn't have any duplicate values, as we know. Difference between sorted set and set is only one, and which is sorted set has score value, which is used to sort the set. Uh, Next one is the hash. So hash can be treated like an object. So here user 1 is the key, and it has multiple key values representing a user. So it has name, email, salary, and city. So fifth one is the list. It's a normal list which can have duplicate values, and it is just a list of strings. So in the strings, in the values, we can also keep the JSON objects. So those were the basic data types supported by Redis. Apart from this, we have advanced data types known as bitmaps, hyperlog logs, and geospatial indexes. So earlier I told you about geospatial indexes used to track the location of the users or appliances. That information we can store in Redis. For bitmaps, I have another slide which I can show you. So bitmaps, basically it's a long list of bits where the default value is always 0. So we can flip any of the value in the any of the location from 0 to 1 out of that long list of bits. The speciality is it's pretty long. It's 2 raised to power 32 bits, which is more than 4 billion values. So what is the use case for bitmaps? Suppose we have a website for which we want to calculate the user retention. So say in April we got some users logged in May we got some users logged in, and we want to calculate the retention. So traditionally, how do we do that? Whenever user logs in, we store that information in the database, and then we do a join. We can do an inner join in the table and match the user ID of the user and then find out the count. But using bitmaps, this can be done very easily. So whichever user logs in, the bit corresponding to that user, we can flip it to 1, indicating that user logged in. If the second user logs in, we can flip his bit to 1. And we need to do the same thing again next month. It is very easy to count using bit count command, and we will get the count of the users which were logged in within the month of April. If we do the same thing for the month of May, then we get 2 bitmaps, one for the month of April and one for the month of May. And if we do bit op AND operation, we get a third bitmap which is doing the AND operation on April and May, and it's going to indicate which was the user which logged in both the months. So now we have the count of the bitmap for both the months and also for the month of April. So we can easily find out the retention percentage. So that was bitmap. Hyperloglog, it is somewhat related to bitmaps. It's a strange name. It's not a deterministic data type. It's a probabilistic data type. So as the data increases within the hyperloglog, it's going to give us the approximate count or the approximate cardinality of that set of values. Any questions here? No, it would be in memory. All data types are in memory. Yeah. So let me compare Redis with the other NoSQL in-memory caching frameworks. So if we compare Redis with Memcache, Both are extremely fast. Benchmarks might vary by workload, versions, and other factors, but the speed is comparable in both the cases. Memory usage in case of Redis is better. Usability wise, in memcached, we can specify the cache size. And even if we do not use that much cache size, memcache always is going to occupy that cache size. But that's not the case with Redis. Even if we set the max size, Redis will never use more than what it has to, and it gives us back the memory which is no longer used. In persistence, there is no persistence provided in memcached, but in Redis, there is persistence provided. It's a clear win for Redis. Scaling wise, Redis provides great tools for scaling, while memcached does not. Redis has great documentation. And as we saw, there are multiple data types supported in Redis, but that's not the case in case of memcached. Yeah, it does. Yeah, we'll go through that.
So to repeat the question was, does Redis support sharding? And the answer was?
Yes. So if we compare Redis with MongoDB, being in-memory database, Redis is faster than MongoDB. Redis is typically not the company's only database, but it's a faster alternative for existing database when we need more speed. But there are many cases where MongoDB can be the only database that the company uses. Redis is a great choice if we have a clearly defined data design and we need fast access to it, to the data. And MongoDB is a great choice if we have structured or unstructured data without clear definition for the data structure. Because of the MongoDB's design, it scales even better than Redis. And if we compare data types, MongoDB does not provide support for multiple data types. It can only store the documents in the JSON format, while Redis has multiple data type support. So scaling Redis, which is one of the important concepts. So scaling can be done in two ways. So basically horizontal partitioning, that is one way, and also using replication, that is important while scaling. So there are various topologies. We have standalone, where we have standalone master node for Redis is present along with the slave node. Slave node is only used for reading data. The master node is used for reading and writing operations. So this is a great choice when we have less writes and multiple reads. In that case, we can go for this. So slaves basically replicate the data which master node has. But the disadvantage is there is no automatic failure in this case. It will be automatically replicated towards slave.
So to repeat the question he asked was, for replication across multiple instances of Redis, is the replication writing to the store a synchronous or transactionally based atomic operation? So Basically, is it ACID compliant?
Yeah, as soon as we write to the master, the value is going to be replicated in the slave. So, yeah. The next topology is the automatic failure using Sentinel. So Redis provides Sentinel, which uh, provides us with the monitoring of master and slave nodes. So we can have multiple masters and slave nodes, and those are monitored by Sentinel. And if master node goes down, then Sentinel makes the slave node as master node. The disadvantage is Sentinel does not distribute data across the nodes. So for scalability, sometimes we need to distribute a large amount of data to multiple nodes. That is not done by Sentinel.
Is it anyways do like let's say when we are working in standalone mode, do in that case?
No.
Is that a capability at all or no?
Yeah. So Twitter has developed Twem proxy. It's an open source software which gives us ability to create a proxy between clients and multiple Redis instances, and we can automatically distribute the data among different Redis instances. So it uses range partitioning or hash partitioning. So using that, we can distribute a large amount of data across multiple instances.
In order to of
No, this is like a programmer written code which is going to do the distribution of data for us. The last one is the cluster mechanism, which is provided by Redis. Here, the distribution of data as well as replication is automatically done. So we can have multiple Redis nodes on different physical servers, and they can be in cluster with each other. And when we insert data, it would not be transparent to us where it is stored. It might go to any master, and data can be distributed as well by cluster itself. So there is a key space in which the data is divided, and key space is basically divided into hash slots. So different nodes hold a subset of that hash slot to store the data. So this is the diagram of the Redis cluster. We see that there are 3 master nodes and 3 slave nodes, and all are connected with each other using Redis gossip protocol. So Redis has persistence provided. So it's a matter of configuration and balancing the trade-off between performance and disk I/O and data durability. So there are 2 mechanisms. One is Redis database and another one is append only file. So in RDB, uh, a single point in time representation of data is done. So at specific amount of time, the snapshot of data is stored into a file. But that's not the case in case of append only file. If we turn this mechanism on, then all the write operations are persisting the data into the file. So advantages of RDB It's compact and it's perfect for backups or for disaster recovery. Although it's not, there is a chance that we might lose some data because the backup happens every specific amount of time. Um, Advantage of RDB is it provides faster restarts with specifically with big data sets as compared to AOF, and it gives better performance. So in case of RDB, there is a main Redis process is forked out to do this backing up of data into a file. Disadvantage is we might lose some amount of data if the crash of the server happens and there is a time lag between the last time the data was snapshot and between the crash time. Since we need to since Redis forks out a child process, so this may result in Redis to stop serving some clients for few milliseconds. And RDB snapshotting generates a high volume of disk writes because the whole file is being written each time. Append only file mechanism, it has advantage of if there are any corruption problems or power outage, we will still have access to the data because it is, as we write the data, it's automatically stored using append only file. It generates less blocks of writes because it's only appending to the data, it's not taking the full snapshot. The disadvantage of AOF is it takes more time to load the data in the memory when the server restarts, and it can be slower than RDB. AOF files are generally bigger than the equivalent RDB files for the same data set. That's one of the disadvantages. So network security, yeah.
So, can you use a combination of both RDB and AOF?
Yeah. So today in the demo, I'm going to use the RDB, but at my company, when we use the cluster, we had used append only file.
But can you use both in combination? So RDP to get major snapshots and AOF to get the
Yeah, we can use both at the
transactions
same
between.
time. So Redis server, we can command it to bind to a specific IP so that no other IP addresses can access the Redis server. So this is designed for the security. Redis is not optimized for maximum security, but for performance. So there are not many features, but it gives some basic features like this bind operation, binding to a specific IP. It also has support for SSL, and we can provide the password to connect to the Redis server. So if I go to this Redis desktop manager, so here auth, here we need to provide the password if it is password protected. We can set the password in the configuration file.
Yeah, let me repeat that question.
Just one password, yeah.
Thanks.
So data encryption is not supported uh, here in Redis. Uh, we can specifically disable the commands or rename some of the commands in Redis so that clients should not be able to access those commands. So that's one of the security feature. And Redis protocol has no concept of string escaping, so injection is not SQL injection is not possible. So I created a simple Redis POC application. I used Spring Boot in that to do the basic CRUD operation for sample data in Redis. The tech stack I have used is Spring Boot, Timeleaf template library to create a simple web application, Java 8, JSON library, and Spring Data Redis, which provides the API to access the Redis server's data. So I did following steps. I downloaded the Redis in Red Hat as well as Windows. Also created instance on the Microsoft Azure. Created a web application to do basic CRUD operation. Secured the web service using multi-factor authentication using Okta. So Okta is a company which helps us do the multi-factor authentication. If we have, say, more than 10 or 25 users, they charge for it. As I had shown you, I use this Redis Desktop Manager as a client to view the data. Yeah, so we'll go through this Spring Boot application. You can access it. You can get the code for this application from this GitHub page. You can search for my name / Spring Boot Redis, and then you can download the code. The only thing it's not going to have is it's not going to have the host port and all this security
Nikhil,
auth to information.
is there any way you can bump up the font size on that? I know it's a little difficult in Eclipse, but oh, hey, you've got it all set. Thanks.
Yeah, so this is a basic Spring Boot application. It has a controller which has various methods to access the application. For example, it can list the items, it can add new item, it can delete an item. So these are the various endpoints for this web application. So if I go to pom.xml file, so I'm using Spring Boot Starter for Redis, Spring Boot Starter for Timeleaf, Starter Web and Test, Spring Boot Starter Security, OAuth 2, because I'm using it along with the Okta multi-factor authentication. So if I start this application, so right now it's pointing to my local host and Redis port is 6378, which is running right here. So it's going to ask me the password. So since it's a two-factor authentication, I need to send a code to my cell phone. So now I can add a new item here. So it automatically created an ID and it is showing me the description and the price. So in the Redis desktop manager, if I connect to my local, I see that these two items are added here. So this is a hash. This is the Samsung 8 phone which is added as an item, and this was the other one which I added. If I update, so that price is updated here. So this is the basic stuff. Now we can also use the Microsoft Azure. So if we create an account on portal.azure.com, it gives us free access for 30 days. After that, we need to go pay as we use it. So if I click on the plus sign and go to databases, and here there is a Redis cache. So this is the name that I'm providing. Yeah, it's going to be on Microsoft Azure. It's going to be persisted there.
Right now it's in the memory, but is there a way to let this person?
Yeah, we can do that. So resource group, I am going to use existing one. I already had created it. I'm going to use the basic one, 250 MB cache. So I clicked on create. It's going to take about 5 minutes to create the cache. Yeah.
So to repeat the question, he was asking if you had provisioned a Redis instance in Azure, and the answer is yes.
So in the meantime, we can. So this is the Redis client. This is the command to connect to it. I'm using Redis-CLI for client, and port is 6378. Here, if I do ping, then it says pong, which basically means that server is up. I wrote down some commands so that I don't need to remember it. So this is just a basic echo. So this is set for first number 1. So this is we are using string data type to set first number as 1. We can set second number as 2. We can increment the first number.
Is there a chance you could zoom in on some of that text to make it more readable?
Oh, I didn't save it. So this is the way to increment the number. Then flush all removes all the data, all the keys. So if we do key star, then there is nothing. So here I set the greeting as a string, hello world. We can expire that greeting in 15 seconds. So if we do TTL greeting, then it says 9 seconds. So we set the time to live for that key. So it's, if we do get after that, it's not there now. So while creating the key itself, we can set the expiry to 30 seconds. So it's 22 seconds remaining. Some commands for list. This is the left push. So this is going to create a list of people. L range people 0 to -1 is going to list all the people that are present in the list. So since we did not set the time to live, it's going to be -1. So the key is going to be there forever. We can do right push to the list. So it added Larry at the right end of the list. So it still says that deployment is in process. Sorry? No, but 5 minutes is still good. But 5 minutes is it's still good, I guess. So can you see it? So these are the commands for adding data to sets, checking whether this specific member is present within that key, to rename the car, rename the keys, to remove a specific element. Can you repeat that? In Java, we have an API. So Spring Data Redis, that's the API I'm using. So using that, we can yeah, there is API to translate to these commands. Yeah, this is just command line interface here. Yes. Yeah, his question is, am I using Spring Data Redis API? So the answer is yes. So this is the documentation for that. Anything else that you want to see? I don't think so. You mean
Like for example, if you want to talk database,
it uses HTTP? Yeah.
I have a question. With traditional relational databases, some corporations have one huge database and they have everything, and other companies have like one database department, and they may not even be the same vendor database. So with Redis, you have one Redis database per company, or do you split them up according to your use cases, or how do you do that?
You can even have one Redis database per application. It's pretty tiny, so it can be per application as well. So here we see each instance of Redis has 15 databases here. So this is done for better management. So multiple applications can access different database so that it is segregated.
ones, are these replicated databases or?
No, those are completely separate databases. Yeah. Yeah, but they call it as,
I think it's just terminology, though.
yeah, they are using it as DB 0 to 15 to indicate databases. So this is the configuration file. So using bind, you can bind your Redis server to a specific IP so that only that IP will be able to access the Redis server. So right now this is only for local host. This is the port this server is going to use, 6378. So it says databases 16. And the default database where you insert is 0. So this is the RDB properties. So after 900 seconds, it's going to save.
Why are there 3 different save parameters there?
That's a good question. So in the example below, the behavior is going to be after 900 seconds, if there is at least one key changed, then save. If after 300 seconds, if at least 10 keys change, then save. Or after 60 seconds, at least 10,000 keys changed, then save.
Thank you very much.
So this is the DB file name where it's going to take the snapshot. So this line indicates slave of which Redis server. So since it is commented, if we uncomment that, it's going to be a slave of Redis server with port 6376.
If this
No, that master doesn't need to know, but the slave needs to know who is the master of that slave.
so if there is a
Yeah.
how would
The main Redis server process is going to communicate
okay,
through that Redis gossip protocol
mm,
between master and slave.
okay, master don't need
No.
Quick question. Some of those setup params, can you pass those in as like environmental variables? So if
Yeah.
you're just kicking off a slave process, can you point it to whichever master you need?
Yeah, let me quickly go through this one. It says append only no. So right now AOF is turned off and append file name is, this is the file name where it's going to store it if it's turned on. So somewhere around here. So this is master auth. So this is the password. If it is uncommented, then this is the password which will be required by the slave to access the master. Oh, I thought you want me to go through those. Uh, yeah, through the command line interface, we can change these parameters. We can change even the port. There is one.
Uh, I think that's a change through the command line, not the environment variable.
Yeah,
You
through
can,
the
you can,
command line we can change it. Not yeah, not like environment variable in a properties file or something. So this is the require pass. This is going to be the main password which we need to provide when we connect the client to the master. Okay, so deployment is succeeded. I can go to the resource. So let me disable SSL. So the port is 6379. I need to click on access keys. This is the primary access key. I copied it and pasted it here as my Redis password. And this is the name of the Redis instance that we created, but only difference is today's date. That's the name I used while creating it. So now if I stop it and restart the Spring Boot application, it's going to connect to the Microsoft Azure Redis instance. So using my Redis desktop manager, I can connect to Microsoft Azure to edit it and provide the information. Today's date, that's the name, access key. So it shows two keys added, two hashes, test 100 and test to 200. I could just reload value instead of reloading the whole thing, whole database. So we are connected to Microsoft Azure Redis instance, and we can have some nice stats here. It shows activity logs, all the properties, metrics, etc. So we can see the graphs here.
So is this a single instance?
Yeah, it's a single instance, 250 MB memory. I could have increased it to. It had a lot of options.
Can I
Multiple
also have a
GB with multiple clustered servers.
chart is kind of dividing your
Yeah, if we use Redis cluster, then data sharding as well as replication is done natively. So if I try to start a new one, I can select up to 53 GB cache.
Nobody wants to overcharge their cloud accounts. I've done it on accident before. It's not pretty.
I also tried AWS, but it's not that great for a demo. It, yeah, it's more secure. This let me not use the SSL, and I can connect to it. But AWS forces to use SSL, and it's a longer way to. It takes more time to connect to it. Yeah, it also has that. Yeah.
So, so the comment was is that in AWS there's a managed offering around Redis and it's called Elastic Cache, and it's basically sorry, Elasticache, and it basically follows the same protocol and semantics as Redis, but they manage the cluster for you. If I recall, you just pay for operations amount of data stored, right?
So is there a way to support
No, only string, list, sorted sets, all those data types that we saw, only those.
so you showed that bit
The bit maps.
yeah, that's not the binary.
Yeah, you can, yeah, that's an advanced data type. You can use that.
I'm just
Yeah, images can be stored in Redis. Yeah, some people have tried it, but it's not a good use case.
yeah.
It's better to use other JavaScript options to load images, lazy loading, instead of caching the
Cache.
images, because
Yeah. Maybe you maybe set up a
we always need images to be loaded, right?
yeah. I think images is kind of a bad use case. A good use case might be, Java objects.
Yeah, it also has support for chatting kind of application. It has support for publish subscribe. You can publish some messages to the channel, and other client can subscribe to it. So even message boards and chatting, all that you can do.
On the documentation, it says that you can store binary data as strings. For example, and they give an example of.
Yeah, nowadays images can be converted to strings, and then we can store it.
But the values cannot be bigger than 312 megabytes.
Thank you for that.
Do we have any more questions for Nikhil? Question is for the
I
various
never
data
tried
types,
that.
how large can the keys be? And the answer is
I never tried it. We can search.
we can find that out for you. Google is your friend. Great. Thank you very much, Nikhil. I very
you.
much
My
appreciate your
pleasure.
time.
Thank you for hosting.
No, thank you for joining us. It's been my pleasure to host. We have the space until 9 p.m. if anybody would like to hang out and just chat, socialize, talk about technology or not, help us eat all this amazing food that we have. I look forward to seeing you all again in January.